All right, everyone. I'm so excited to introduce my next guest, amazing comedian. You've seen her on Comedy Central, VH1, Netflix, and so much more. And right now, director and producer of Come What May, a documentary on the life of Ralphie May. Well, please welcome to the show, Lahna Turner. Hey.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. A lot of stuff you got going on. I'm excited to dive into the documentary, but I want to learn more about you, Lahna Turner, first, like comedian, photographer, like all the things, right?
Well, where do you start? I mean, I when you say that, the first thing I think of is probably the title that is like the most looked over, which is I have two kids that are one is about to leave the house at 18. And I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I raised a human into adulthood, which is mostly functional. Mostly. And then I have another one on the way, which is mostly functional. So I'm like, that's pretty wild as you're saying all that other stuff. But yeah, I'm doing a lot right now, which is, yeah, it's hard to talk about yourself. And someone's like, tell us about you. I'm like, oh
No,
my
no, no.
gosh. Yeah.
You started comedy after college, but before, were you always funny? Were you the funny one? Where like what sort of, I know you went down a path where you worked for the AP and you were a photographer. And so all creative elements, right? All kind of
Yeah.
creative.
Yeah.
What was the path that eventually led you to do stand-up comedy, to get on stage in Houston and kind of do the thing?
Yeah, no, I was brutally shy, so shy, introverted. I found myself doing photography because I could, have a camera and hide behind it and still observe the world. And I loved that, like, I wore a baseball cap everywhere I went and like a t-shirt and baggy pants and just wanted to blend in as much as I could to take photos of whatever I was doing. I didn't want to be part of this, I wanted to like meld. Being on stage was never something I thought. I was very, very introverted and actually terrified of performing, but I always played guitar and wrote songs. I started playing guitar very young. I should be a lot better at playing guitar, but I found myself to be like a really expressive songwriter. And I love that, but I would never play my songs for anybody. It was just something I enjoyed until right before I graduated college. I had a car wreck and I flipped my Volvo, which thank goodness I was in a Volvo, seatbelted in. I flipped it on the freeway. That experience really shook me. I was like, what? Anything that I was afraid of doing prior to that just seemed dumb because I could have died. I spent the next year traveling because also around that same time, newspapers started folding. I had my whole life planned out. I'd been working my way through college. I'd saved enough money to buy this really nice, like a 300 2.8 lens, which is a sports lens that you see the photographers with, really, it was at the time, it was like a $5,000 lens. I worked so hard to save up for this lens. And then I wrecked my car, which hurt my body, and my summer internship at the Houston Post, the whole newspaper crumbled. This is like 100-year-old newspaper. You never thought that those would ever go away. And I saw that as a sign. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to travel. And I took that money and I went overseas. And when I came home, I was still exploring being part of the news media in Houston. I started working at the ABC affiliate, Channel 13 there. And then I started playing songs out and somebody said, hey, you got some funny songs. Go to the Laugh Stop. I was a huge fan of comedy. Never thought I would do stand up, but that just sounded like fun. At this point in my life, I was like, I'm not saying no to anything and I'm not going to be afraid to try something new. And I fell in love with being on stage instantly, as I think many people do when they try stand up. And that was it. In fact, like about 2 months after my first open mic, I got paid. I got like $20 to do a set. And I looked at the $20 in my hand and I was like, what is this for? I didn't know you could make money doing it. I still make probably the same amount, honestly. But it was such a good feeling to go, oh, wait, you can have a career doing this. And then I just never looked back. I was so excited at that option.
I love that. It's funny you say I was in my basement. I did stand up for 20 years. I loved it. I also painfully shy, hard to get in front of just anybody. And then all of a sudden you become someone else. It's an interesting thing. I just forgot that I had this and I was just in my basement. On my wall, I have an envelope, which was the first 20 or $25 that I earned doing stand up at Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle. I never spent it. I just put it in an envelope, dated it, and then I hung it up. And
You must have been doing really well to be able to hold on to that. That I was so broke. There was no way that 20 was gone. Like there were times when I didn't have groceries. So like that's a luxury. You were killing it.
I had a job. So it was like photography. What type of, did you specialize in a particular type of photography? Like did you have a niche there?
Yeah, I was interested in being a photojournalist. That was it for me. I started taking pictures just like on my high school yearbook. But when I went on my first year of college, I didn't like my school. It was very boring. I went to this like little town in Kerrville and went to this small private college my first year before I transferred out. But I was stuck in the town. I was bored. So I got my first I was working a full-time job for the newspaper there. And that's where I started learning how to do a lot. I would spend my time in school, go straight to the darkroom. That summer that followed my first year, I was an idiot kid. Again, post car accident kind of. Well, actually, that was actually before my car accident. Now that I think about it, I was just an idiot. I wasn't inspired, just being dumb. I walked into the the Associated Press office, and I met this man. His name's Rick Bomer. He was my mentor. He was just this amazing man who had been to war zones and full-time AP photographer. And he actually patted me on the head and kicked me out the door. He was like, "Get away, little kid." But then I ran into him around Houston and he said, "Well, you can call me if you want to learn more." And I harassed him. I called him for like 3 weeks straight until he gave me a chance. And then we started an internship at AP, and that's where I really started to get experience. And that was all I wanted to do. If you'd have seen me in that period of my life, I would not have been present with you without a camera by my side. So documenting the human condition was something that like really interested me my whole life. And it's weird now because life does have a way of going full circle, because I ended up documenting my own life, which I never would have thought I'd have ever done. But I guess that's how it happened.
Well, it's interesting. There's a parallel, I think, to the comedy. It's different. I mean, one, you're on stage presenting the world to the world to the world, or the truths, and it's much more interactive. And photography, you're capturing the world in a still, but it's still an art. It's still something that you're putting out there that's you, and it's your version. I had a friend who was amazing at photography, and it's like you look at stuff, he'd take a picture of a donut, and I was like, I'd put this on my wall. Can't take a picture of a donut and ever consider putting it on my wall. It's such an interesting skill to be able to capture life like that.
Well, and you can also, like, now that you're saying it, like, you can also make photos very like funny. Like you take the donut now and you like put a hot dog next to it. Like, it's just funny. I got to photograph National Nudity Day. It was one of the funniest things I've ever photographed, because like I had to figure out how to take pictures of naked people, but not show anything. So they're like playing pool, but I had to like, get the photo where it's just positioned with the hand over the nipple or whatever. You know what I mean? And like, I got them bleeding. It's like the funniest moments. But they're like, did you even know there was a National Nudity Day?
I just recently found out 2 seconds ago.
Yeah, there's a day that you can celebrate your nakedness. Yeah, and that was a story I got to cover. I went to, I think it's Brenham. I think that's, yeah, in Texas, there's like this, in the middle of where you would not expect it to be, there's like a nudist colony where people go and just chill out in the nude. I think it's next to the Bluebell ice cream factory. Like, it's out that way. Like, the most wholesome ice cream is made right next to this like party nudist village like area. It was really funny.
That's awesome. Did you keep the outtakes then? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah. I have those pictures still. I kept all my negatives and stuff, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. And negatives is just such a funny thing now because everything is like digital. I still love film.
I love explaining to people of a certain age. It was like amazing to be able to get the film back in an hour. Like, that was revolutionary. Like, like we used to wait a week just to even find out what was on there. I mean, it was just like,
right?
It's foreign to like so many people, like it, but that was what you would do. Hey, you got to drop off the film,
Or just find some random like film that you shot and you have no idea what was on it. You're like, what's this mystery roll? And there's never anything on it. It was like sitting in the sun. And it was so expensive to get it to be like processed. You're just like, there's like one blurry shot of somebody and like, but yeah, I love that. I loved the watching an image kind of just like come up in the emulsion of a piece of paper. It's magic, which, we don't get to experience quite that feeling, but I like it being instant too. But don't you just take so many pictures of nothing? My phone is just full of stuff I'll never be able to find.
I had to come up with like a rule where if I'm looking at something, I tried to discipline myself to say to myself, would I ever want to look at this again? And if the answer is no, in uncertain terms, I don't take the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you know this comedy even existed? Like the open mic that you went to, like, how did you find out about that? And how did you get the nerve to even get on stage that first time?
Well, I used to go to the Laugh Stop in Houston a lot. I just never thought about getting on stage. There weren't that many women back then doing stand up either. So it just didn't occur to me. And that's kind of sad, but like kind of like female firefighters. If you just don't see somebody as a little girl doing something, you don't sort of see yourself in it. But at least that was the case for me. So I used to love watching it. Big fan. I was playing funny songs on my guitar and somebody said, you should go to the open mic. And I was like, I'm going to do that. I went in there and brought a friend with me. He's a good friend to this day. But I had no idea if I was going to be able to do well or not. And I played 3 songs on the open mic and it was great. As a songwriter, I was able to write an act faster than most people because, like you bring out the guitar, you're kind of hated by all the comics, but the audience likes it, right? So that came very easily to me. But writing monology, like just getting up and talking, that took me a little bit of time. At some point, a couple of years into stand-up, I put my guitar down and said, I just need to learn how to talk. And I started working on just trying to do stand-up. And that was a very different process for me. I do consider myself a songwriter first, and then I worked my way into doing stand-up, which I love. But yeah, it wasn't something I planned. It's just really fun, as you know.
It's addictive, right? I mean, it's like when you get on stage, there's nothing better than making a audience full of people, especially strangers, I think, laugh. It's like there's something like really addictive to that. There's nothing worse than when they don't laugh.
And they don't laugh. It's the best stroke for a low self-esteem, which I think every comic struggles with mostly. If they have a self-esteem, it's probably somewhat fake. And so when you get in front of an audience and they're laughing, you're like, oh, I am okay. I'm not that dumb little girl or whatever, And you're so right. And when I like sometimes having a bad set, like when they don't laugh, because then those are the times that you improve the most. So as much as it's painful, if you walk away from that and you're like, okay, I'm going to learn from that experience, then it's actually quite good. But it is painful in the moment. You're like, oh, that sucked. But you don't get better without doing bad, right?
100%, 100%. And no one wants to hear about the good sets. Oh, you won't believe how well I did yesterday. Okay, right. Well, people only want to hear the bad stuff. You know what I mean? Like the struggling, I should say, not the bad stuff, but 100%. Yeah, it's the only way you learn. It's like, then your brain's like, I got to make sure this never happens again. Hopefully make it less and less, right? So,
yeah.
All right. So you got a gig right after you mentioned you blew through your $20. Like, were you then just kind of just trying to make it a full-time thing right away? What was your path? Just on open mics, just working?
Oh, my parents were heartbroken. I didn't take the below poverty reporter position in Victoria, Texas, where I was going to do local news and report on the weather, Instead, I just dug in, stayed in Houston, started bartending, continued photographing, doing teaching comedy defensive driving classes, and started working and trying to get gigs and do open mics. And that was terrifying for my parents. Yeah, I really wanted to do comedy. And I also, I met my then friend who became my boyfriend and husband, which was Ralphie. I never thought I would date Ralphie. When I met him, he was 800 pounds, not exaggerating. If you know Ralphie, he had major weight problems. That's not an exact, but to imagine him being 800 pounds is something that I don't think people fully realize. In fact, I didn't realize he was 800 pounds because when you were around him, it faded away because you saw just this really charismatic, funny, sweet person. And we became really good friends. That had a huge impact on me, was just getting to know him and hanging out with him too. So,
this is pre Last Comic Standing?
This is 7 years pre Last Comic Standing. Yeah.
So he was doing comedy, you were doing comedy, you kind of...
He was doing comedy. He started comedy. He'd probably been doing it about a decade at that point. So he was already pretty well established. Yeah. When I met him, we would go do gigs together. Or he would take me to do some gigs. We became friends. And actually he was splitting his time. He couldn't make enough money to survive in LA exclusively, but he'd already was going to and from LA. So he would go there and we would talk on the phone for hours, back when it cost money to talk on a phone. And then he would come back to Houston and I would see him in person. But I feel like my love for him developed over the phone because I got to know him and I looked forward to talking to him. So the physical component of him being this massive person, because I would never have, I'm not like, hey, I'm not like a chubby chaser. I'm not like, hey, fat guy, that's my thing. Right. But I really think I was able to see past it. And actually, I'm a pretty, I've always been able to look past physical. I spent a lot of time, like even like leading up to Ralphie, a little backstory. I spent a lot of time in India and people were very hungry. So I got to see the opposite, right? I don't know. He just struck me as a beautiful person. And then when we started dating and I was like, he was so cuddly. He was just soft and cuddly. So I very much fell in love with him. And that was 7 years. So when people hear about my relationship with him, and I don't blame them for thinking this, but I get judged because people will be like, oh, she got with him because he was taking her to do gigs. I didn't need him to take me to do gigs with him. I really liked him. Or they'll think he was on TV. He had Last Comic Standing. He was famous. No, that was 7 years of us being broke together leading up to that. Yeah, he was just a really special person.
Yeah, the gigs thing, like you're like, oh, I could have married 15 people if that was the criteria. Right? I mean, that's how the comedy works, everyone. It's just, people bring people on gigs.
Yeah, I mean, if you're lucky, I mean,
Yeah.
especially, yeah, I probably could have. I mean, I was already working in Houston. I was working the Laugh Stop and opening my first opening for a comic was actually Bill Burr. And he was co-headlining with another comedian who's no longer with us, Scott Kennedy, back then. And that was my first opening gig. And then I also got to open for Joe Rogan and a bunch of big names. Jeff Ross came through. So, I mean, I was working. I like to clear that up though. But like I said, I don't blame people. Like if I see some old dude with a super young, hot chick, I tend to judge too. And, is she with her father or what? Or he must have money but I try not to be that person because I am that person. I was in the relationship where people want to judge. So I get it.
Well, I'm not judging you. I think it's awesome. The universe takes you where it takes you. To your other point, though, the one thing I always thought was really cool about comedy was the fact that you could work with like these huge names, or you could work with someone and then suddenly they're a huge name. Right. Like Bill Burr probably wasn't Bill Burr like at that time. He may have been up and coming, but like versus like now today's Bill Burr. Right. I mean, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
You get in with people and it's like they can explode later and you're like, oh yeah, I opened for him.
Yeah.
Time doesn't
Yeah,
matter
no.
at that point.
Yeah, no, he was co-headlining with another comic and he was hilarious. But yeah, you just don't. Yeah, you're so right.
Yeah, I got to open for Kevin Pollak, George Wallace, Bobby Collins. Like I worked with Jeff Ross once too. He was really cool. But yeah, it's like I'm a nobody. I'm like, oh, okay, local guy. They just pluck you out. It's like
yeah.
So as you're getting to know Ralph, I got to know Ralphie. I mean, like a lot of people probably did. Last Comic Standing, right? So that was, but in the 7 years before that, where you got to know him, like, was his comedy always consistent? Was there an evolution of it? Or was he always kind of that, and then he just kind of broke?
I mean, he was hilarious. I mean, he was always funny. It was interesting to watch because once you're on TV and you have that notoriety and you have your audience knows what to expect. They come out to see you specifically. It's really hard. It becomes a lot harder to have a bad set. One of the first road gigs that he and I did together, we drove from Texas to Canada and did some shows in Toronto. And that's my hometown. I actually grew up in Toronto. So I was super excited to go back. He really struggled. He bombed every show. And I think it was just that he was this like fat Southern guy trying to come up to Canada. It's just like they weren't buying it. Although he went back to Toronto many years after Last Comic Standing and he had his audience and he did great. So I think it's almost like people don't know. What I'm telling anyone who's listening is go to the local club. What you were saying, you could see somebody before they were famous and you don't think they're anything special. And then all of a sudden they're the biggest thing in comedy. It just didn't have the label on it. And the nuance got lost in the moment because it wasn't up on that pedestal yet.
Rich Scheidner was on the show recently and he was talking about Sam Kinison, who I believe had an impact on Ralphie early on as well. And we could talk about that in a second, but he was similar story. He was doing a gig with Sam, bombed. Then he does the Rodney Dangerfield thing, becomes huge. And next thing you know, he's telling Rich, I'm going back to the college and they're giving me like 15 grand to do it.
Yeah, that's so funny to me. Like, yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard to not do well once you're famous. Oh, what's his name? Richard from Seinfeld, Kramer.
Yeah. No.
I just went blank. Michael Richards. Michael Richards. I was thinking Richard. Michael Richards. He's an amazing talent, right? He used to get up at the Laugh Factory before the incident where he got recorded, and he would get the biggest applause because he's Michael Richards, but he didn't come with a lot of stand-up material. So he would do the Kramer thing for the first few minutes. I think he could have done anything just about as long as he kept them going, but he would typically struggle after the first maybe 7 minutes. So, but absolutely like no, nothing he could do would be wrong until that 7 minute mark. And then people are like, okay, now we're ready for some jokes. So that's an example. Like he had the love right there and then couldn't hold it. I don't think you need to have that much to hold it at that point because people are just so happy to see you, you know, but he didn't have any jokes.
Right. He didn't have the skill, which is why it went south for him.
Yeah.
Like he did
Yeah.
not.
It
Yeah.
went like very far south, but like
Yeah.
what a funny improv guy, like slapstick. He falls on the stage, but like there was at some point like that wasn't going to carry over. But yeah, it's like, I guess it works both ways. So that if you have that fame, oh my gosh, like there's no stopping you.
It sounds like when Ralphie became super famous, like when launched with Last Comic Standing, he pretty much had the 10th, as they say, the 10,000 hours behind him.
Yeah.
Like he was professionally ready for that launch. That's what you don't think about. It's funny when you watch, you don't think about it. Same thing. People are like, "Oh, Dane Cook's album is so amazing. Yeah, he worked on it for 10 years."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. It takes a lot of time to get good at stand up. Like you don't just go up to your open mic and then that's it, right? So you know. But yeah, he was ready. He was ready, and he had the material to go on. That was huge. It completely changed our lives. You'll see it. What's amazing about the film, the documentary, is that we had so much footage from our lives that dated back to when we first met. We were living off Crenshaw when he shot Last Comic Standing, and we went from there to eventually buying our house. Yeah, we were very, very lucky. He was lucky. And when I say lucky, Ralphie had Jay Mohr. Jay Mohr is lucky for Ralphie. That Jay Mohr changed Ralphie's life.
Yeah, well, Jay Mohr is pretty odd. Well, he was hosting Last Comic, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Jay Mohr made Ralphie famous. If it wasn't for Jay Mohr, you and I wouldn't be talking. Oh, well, we might be talking because we're comics and we might be doing your podcast otherwise, but we wouldn't be talking about Ralphie getting famous because I think Ralphie would have stayed in obscurity without Jay Mohr. And that's a bold statement, but I really attribute Ralphie's success to Jay.
What else did Jay do beyond the Last Comic Standing?
Jay took Ralphie on the road with him before Ralphie became famous. And Jay put him on a show called Mohr Sports, which came out before Last Comic, which you can see in the film. Like it's all been recorded. It's wild. And I think Jay wanted to bring him out and make him known. And like Jay says in the interview in the film, I couldn't put him on the show. He had to audition to be on the show, but he was going to be on the show because he just needed somebody to believe in him. And nobody believed in Ralphie before then. He was uninsurable. Like you can't insure him at his size to be on many TV sets, which is wild to think about that. But Jay Mohr was the ingredient. That was his luck.
It's great to have people, not only that will support you like that, but someone like a Jay Mohr who leveraging his own visibility to help someone else become visible as well. His own fame and lending some of that out in a positive way to help lift somebody else up. That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But that was part of the whole idea of Last Comic Standing too, because I think he was one of the creators of that show, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. So just to be able to kind of pull that original core together. I remember because Ralphie's dad, was it, that died during the show? And then he came out and just read kind of like street jokes or something like that,
You've got such a good memory, Mike. So that was actually, they had like a Last Comic reboot where they brought the two seasons together.
Was that season 3?
Yeah, it was some kind of like season 1 versus season 2 thing. And he had to leave in the middle of taping to go to we went to his father's funeral. But yeah, that was a sad moment for Ralphie because he didn't really have a relationship with his dad for most of his life. And then as he became famous, his father entered back into his world and then died like a year later. It was a pretty big, hey, that's a fun thing to talk about.
Well, it was a touching moment on the show. I didn't remember if it was which season, but you're right, because he took second place, right, to Dat Fan.
He did.
One of the top comedians in the world right now. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. He got a bad rap, Dat Fan. But like sometimes not winning is actually better than winning, I think, on some of these shows. Some of the most famous American Idols are not the winners. If you have a Jay Mohr by your side, it helps too. But yeah, I remember that. He came out and just did the kind of the jokes. So he became close with his father. His fame kind of brought him back in and got them close before he passed away. That's nice.
Yeah, he had like 1 year kind of that I know of. I mean, we talk about it. actually in, so I'm going to keep saying about the film because I'm literally in the studio right now. We're doing the audio edit, the final audio mastering session right now. So it's all very fresh right now for me because I just sat through the final audio review before we put together, it's like a DCP, which is what we're going to be sending to the theaters because we're going to be screening it in various theaters. And so right now I can just hear all the different conversations in my head just about his dad right now. Like his father had some problems and it affected the marriage. And so Ralphie didn't grow up knowing him. And so, yeah, reuniting with him in that for 1 year, it's kind of bittersweet, right?
Some people don't get the 1 year. So it's,
True.
it's nice. Yeah. All right. So come what may, let's just talk about it. It's on your
Okay.
mind. I want to talk about it. I just come what
We
may.
can talk about anything you want.
No,
It
I
doesn't
want to
matter.
talk about this. I definitely want to talk about this. So it's important to you, and you're the director, and I watched the trailer. It looks like it's gonna be amazing. I do have a pre-question to the current documentary. If you Google Ralphie May documentary, there's other documentary like What's Eating Ralphie May from like 2020-ish that I can't tell if it ever got released or not. It's like maybe there was something in between. I don't, is this, tell me the history of the documentaries and then let's go all in on Come What May.
Okay, that's a really good question. First, I need to tell you that I'm a co-director. There's another director to this project, and his name is David Gantz. David did a beautiful job with this film. He edited, and I had to step out of certain parts of this film because I'm in it. So in order to keep it objective, any of the scenes or parts that I'm in, David really had to take the lead on because you can't do a project and be fully. I tried to remove myself from it and be as honest as possible within it. But if there was anything with me, David is taking the lead on it and had my full permission to do whatever he wanted and make me look as bad as he needed. And so that's really important to note. So let's go back now to your other question. This film is very unique. A lot of times when somebody passes away, their celebrity, you do a biopic, which is you find as much footage on the person as you can, and you do interviews and you edit it together, and that's what you got. And that's it. That's all you have. You do the best you can with it. This project was very complicated, a lot harder because before Ralphie passed away for 9 months, we filmed what was intended to be a weight loss documentary for him. And it ended with us. It ended quite hard. Like he and I split up at the end of the filming. The woman who shot that 9 months of footage put together a film called What's Eating Ralphie May. It was almost exclusively the footage that she shot during that 9 months that we had hired her to shoot. And she put together a piece of content that still like it made it into 3 film festivals. It was good. It just wasn't, we weren't able to sell it. We weren't able to get it anywhere beyond that. I tried for 19 months with 2 different sales agents to try and get her project into the light. And it just I couldn't do it. And she tried as well. And I don't think she wasn't able to do it. So I just decided that wasn't the project. That wasn't what was going to honor Ralphie, and went back to it. Trust me, if I could have been done, was that like 6 over 6, it's like 6 years ago, I would have been a lot happier because this was really hard, really, really hard to do, really hard and very expensive, took a lot of time. And yeah, sadly that didn't work. But so it is confusing because when it went on its first 2 festivals and then it did a third one, I didn't go to the third one. That was in Atlanta. We got press for it and we started talking about it and getting reviews, and people didn't hate it. They liked it, but it just couldn't go anywhere beyond that. So here we are.
Got it.
Does that kind of explain it? Oh, I guess the other thing you might have seen is Love You, Ralphie, which was also from the footage that she shot, but it was just his stand-up. So there's a lot of stand-up mixed into those drives. And it's a kind of like if you found an old tape of Nirvana and it was kind of scratchy and not great, but it's still like the lost files of Kurt Cobain or whatever, you'd be like, that's rad. I want to see that. And that's what Love You, Ralphie is. It's his stand-up shot in that 9-month window with a shaky camera, but in like really cool cities. And we edited it together and put it out. And it's just basically a gift to his fans.
Very cool.
Yeah. So but this is it. I'm done. I joke. Ralphie Ralphie never did never did anything I say he never did anything with subtlety. Like he never was able to do anything small. So if Ralphie's going to have a documentary, he's going to have three. If Ralphie's going to have a tombstone, he's going to have three, or he's going to have two tombstones and three are going to be paid for. Like he'd have two seats on an airplane, like the joke, like two pizzas, like whatever it is, it's never just going to be one. So here we have a lot of stuff.
I think as long as you can keep coming up with clever wordplay titles, you should keep making
Yeah.
documentaries. I think that should be the rule.
Done. No more. No more. You have people messaging me now. Lahna, you have to do this title. I'm like, no, I have to go for it.
How did you go about creating this final tribute, this final experience? Like what was in your head, and how did you then work with your co-director to make this a reality?
The footage that was shot during that 9 months wasn't acquired as well as it needed to be a feature. So we needed to figure out ways to record high-end, good quality footage. And that's where the interviews came in. And then also licensing and getting access to his footage. That I became a lawyer, basically. I had to learn how to license content because I had to pay. I can't afford to pay somebody else to do this. And so I just started getting back as much footage as I could and shooting interviews of people who loved him, going and getting his mother and his sister and his brother recorded. I had a lot more. Once I started producing it myself, I was able to go back in and pull a lot more content. The hardest part was there was so much. I joke I couldn't fit Ralphie in 90 minutes because he was too big. So it started out, it was like 3 hours of material and we cobbled it down. It's still long, but you couldn't tell his whole story in just 90 minutes. It just wasn't going to happen. I couldn't tell the addiction story. I couldn't tell the career story. I couldn't tell the food issues, like all the things that I think are really important through lines to his life that we couldn't just cram in there. So it needed space to breathe, but also, there were things that we had to cut out. When he was a baby, his mother's a whole wing of his family died in a plane crash. It's a tragic story that definitely was formative for his life. But I mean, even that we had to cut it. There's so much to share. So
was there anything you learned during it that you didn't know prior?
About Ralphie?
Yeah.
I learned a lot about Ralphie after he passed. The old adage, like clean your underwear before you go somewhere, because if you get into an accident, you don't want them to see that in the hospital, that type of thing. You know what I'm talking about? Like that would be like what your grandmother would say, make sure you leave the house. I think the new one is clean your cloud, right? If you die and somebody gets into your cloud, which I had to have access to his cloud because there was a lot of missing assets when he died. When he passed, there was $17 in his bank account and $300,000 in debt. So it was really important for me to go back in and kind of try and trace what had happened in his life at that last year. So I learned a lot, some things I wish I hadn't, but it kind of filled in the lines for me, or the holes, and I'm wiser for it. But yeah. So in the filming of the documentary, or the shooting of that, I didn't go in it with blinders on. I knew what I was in for.
I didn't necessarily mean a negative thing either. Like it could have been
positive things. Oh, positive things I found in his iCloud. Oh boy.
Well, I didn't mean like an iCloud. I mean, like, you're talking to Jay Mohr and he's like, oh, there was this one time, like just even a story, like just like, oh, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yes. So Jamie Masada, oh my God, the stories he shared, which was Ralphie's first manager, and like the most amazing, like I love Jamie. He owns the Laugh Factory. He's been just wonderful. He had stories that I did not know about Ralphie. And so did our former roommate, Sean Anderson, who since his interview, sadly, he's passed away too, which that's a whole other thing. But Sean and I were really good friends. And there were things that I did not know about their relationship. So yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a learning experience. Yeah. You know what I should say I learned the most about doing this thing, which is bizarre, was myself. So like watching myself on camera was really, I look at myself in some of these moments of my life and I think I wish I could go back and like talk to myself and be like, what were you thinking? Get out of there. Like I'm a codependent. I don't know how much you know about the addiction world, but I'm a very codependent person and I'm very loyal. And so when I watch the film, I'm just like, oh, you could get out of there. I don't think I could have, because that's just not in my way of being. But yeah, I learned a lot about me. And sometimes I'll say something that I said on camera. And I'm like, oh, don't do that. Like I say in the same way. No, like that's weird. So
Hindsight's 2020, but like when you're in the
yeah.
moment, you do what's right for you in that moment. So did you find this Come What May documentary to be good closure to that, like a good kind of bookend to the time you had with Ralphie?
I think it's still, I think we're not there yet. I found my way recently to figuring out what it felt like to love him again. Like for a long time, I couldn't really find that in my heart. It was painful because I wanted to still love him. But I kind of got like quashed like out of me. And then very recently I was able to like find my way back to that. And that was awesome. But I don't think we're at closure point yet. Like I think that he's still very much involved. And I don't know about the afterlife, but I don't think he's going to want to like leave yet. I think he's kind of, and I'm not a spiritual person really. I don't know how to describe it, but I do think that there's some sort of connection. We don't just instantly leave this planet. And I don't know what that is. He's watching you. Hello, Ravi.
Hello, Robert.
You're here. You're here with us now. I mean, if anything I would say the most important thing to him would be his career, and I would hope that he'll be in the back of the theater watching. And I'm bringing his jacket out to the theater showings, and because he always said to me that he wanted to go back out on tour post-mortem. He actually said he wanted me to take his ashes on tour and sprinkle him on stages. And I said, dude, you'll end up in the nachos. And then we were both like, that's where you belong. But doing this film and taking it on the road and taking it to different towns feels like he's going back out on the road. And I can't imagine him not wanting to kind of like quietly observe that. And when I say quietly, I don't think he does anything quiet. So we'll see.
I either saw pictures or maybe it was the trailer of everyone putting on Ralphie May's jacket. I thought that was pretty cool.
I've posted 2 videos. So I didn't know how this would be received. One, I was unboxing it because I had it in a frame at the Laugh Factory. So we took it out of the frame and that video instantly got like 100,000 views, just pulling the jacket out. And then I took it over to a couple of clubs and I had 5 comedians put it on. And that video, I haven't even checked recently, but last I looked at between the several platforms, it had over 500,000 views. And so I haven't done much else with it yet, but I'm looking forward to bring it. We're doing a show on the 20th at the Laugh Factory. So we'll have the jacket there and people can try it on and we'll have it at the screenings. I think that it gives people a connection because Ralphie always took pictures of people after the shows. So it's the closest we can get, you know?
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it was really cool actually. Seeing everyone try it on. How old are your kids now?
My daughter's 18 and my son's 16.
Are they involved? Have they been watching it? Are they familiar with their dad's full story?
They are. Yeah, that's an interesting thing for me. One of the things I can tell you that I'm really glad this took so long to come out is because the kids are now young adults. So they didn't have to go through the journey of having content come out about them when they're little and not really understanding what it is. But they've been hearing about it since they were babies. You know, we've been recording this for the longest time and working on the cut. They've both seen it. And I mean, they're teenagers and they're pretty confident. I don't know how I would have felt as a teenager having pictures of me it could be embarrassing, right? But they're not embarrassed. At least not right now. They're not. They're excited. Yeah.
Well, their dad's beloved. So, I mean, it's like, it's like people love Ralph May. So it's like,
it's just their life.
Yeah.
It's normal for them, which is weird.
Are either of your kids funny? Do they want to be, either of them want to be comedians?
They're hilarious. My son is insanely funny. He is so ridiculously funny. My daughter's really funny too, but he's got the swagger. But he loves playing drums. So he's been pursuing drums pretty aggressively for the last many years. And she's an artist. She wants to go to school and study art. So we'll see where they land. I mean, I don't encourage them to get on stage, but if they ever want to do it, he would absolutely tear it up. I mean, and she's so clever, but we'll see.
That's cool. Your son could be doing comedy on the drums and you could be on the guitar.
The guitar, be a little band. She writes songs. She's a good songwriter, my daughter. So but she's like where I was when I was her age. She doesn't really feel fully comfortable playing them out. But she put out a book of poetry just a few months ago. She did it without even telling me. And she posted it on Amazon. I'll have to send you a link. We can put it in the notes, but it was 60. So she does a lot of work with grief. when she was little, I took her to an organization called Our House Grief Support, and she took in the groups as a child. And then she became a teen leader, and she's been doing that for several years now, volunteering with children who have lost a parent or sibling. Most amazing person, my daughter. And she decided she would write a book of poems. It's super sad, but it's also really beautiful. And she illustrated it and she put it up on Amazon, and then she told me about it. So
It's really cool.
yeah,
Okay. Such a
yeah.
creative family. So, Lahna, so all right, so you're going to screen Come What May, and then is there a plan? Like, are we going to get into the theaters or Netflix or something like that?
You know what? Hello, call Netflix. Hello, Netflix. Okay, so what I'm doing now is we're taking it on tour. I'm going to honor Ralphie's wishes. What he asked me to do, take him on the road and then do that for him. It's going to cost me a lot of money to do this for him, but I want to get the word out, and I think it's the right thing to do. I don't know about streaming yet. What I do know is that what has happened in the course of trying to create the documentary, because I told you I became like a lawyer and was licensing back material.
Right.
I got back a lot of his content. And my business partner, Mike, is really good at streaming content. He started pushing Ralphie online, and his content has done extremely well. And so we started a little company called Comedy Genius, and we stream long and short form content. Through this sort of back window of how to do independent streaming, I've learned that you can do almost everything on your own. I want a streaming window or a big streamer to pick up this film and take it and run with it. I would love that more than anything. I'm not sure yet how to get it to them properly, and I feel pretty confident that I can stream it on my own independently. So I'm just kind of like doing something really frightening, which is going with the flow and seeing where it lands. And I think it belongs on Netflix. I think it belongs on HBO or wherever. I haven't even tried that yet. I just thought this seems right, which is probably stupid, but we'll see.
I'm sure somebody will grab it. Is it done? Is it all done? I mean, are you still working on it? Or you said you're in the studio still, so it's like
this is just an audio polish so that it's ready for the theaters. I think we're about 2.5 weeks away from our first. So I'm going to take this audio today back, and we're going to put it with the finished product, and we're done. But yeah, it's done. Isn't that weird? It's done.
it's awesome.
Almost a decade.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is amazing. So where can people keep up on the process or the progress? Where can people keep up on the progress of everything? Your website, LahnaTurner.com?
Well, social media is always great, right? Because I'm posting pretty regularly to Instagram and Facebook, all the regular places. Also, we're posting on Ralphie's pages. And then we have a website dedicated to the film. I do have my own website, LahnaTurner.com. And then we have ComeWhatMayFilm.com. And then I also did a comic book, which you can check out, that's coming out with this film about a fat superhero and that's called Pounds of Power. He gets his powers through his weight. Like, how fat is stored energy?
Right.
What if you could tap it? And that's what Johnny does. And the book is dedicated to Ralphie. So that drops also in conjunction with the tour. So we've got that coming up. So there's lots of cool things. And then when we do stream, I'm going to have an autobiographical book that comes out. So some of the stuff that I couldn't put in the film, I'm able to put into the book. I'm almost finished with that. I've got a lot of stuff I've been working on the last decade.
You are busy. I was going to bring up Pounds of Power. The art looks really cool. I mean, you just have the covers on there, but it looks like a real cool style of art. So anyway, yeah, that's awesome. And then you have also, I know we kind of talked a lot about the documentary, but there's also tons of Lahna that everyone can listen to online. There's a song about it, a whole special on YouTube, and there's albums and so much Lahna Turner. You can get into her comedy and listen to her comedy.
Thank you.
Great stuff.
I always joke that I'm the woman behind the man. You just don't see me back there because he was so big. But yeah, I'm not as good at touting myself, but like I'm really funny.
You're very funny. You're very funny.
Like the interviews are sometimes like hard because we're talking about like addiction and stuff like that. But like all of that works its way into stand up, which, is a journey I never thought I'd be on. Right. So yeah, I even have a new comedy album that I'm finishing up as well of 8 new comedy songs. So like, I want to be a comedian more than anything else, but I don't mind I don't mind being a filmmaker or an author or a mother or anything else as well. It's just hard to juggle it all, but I'm really proud. It's my mother told me, I saw her 2 weeks ago, and for the first time in my since I started this adventure, she said, "I'm proud of you." I was like, what? That's like, I'm so glad. That's like music to my ears. Like, if no one else likes anything that I do for the rest of my life, at least my mother said she's proud of me finally. So
Finally.
that's it. That was the pinnacle. I'm done.
I too am proud of you. No.
Oh, two people are proud. Yay. Yeah, no, that felt like, okay, I must be doing something right if my mom can muster those words up. My mom's awesome, but it is hard to get that approval, right? So especially when you like go off on the completely off rails of what they thought your life was supposed to look like.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what? You got to follow your passion and your creativity, and I'm glad you did. And I'm excited for all these projects to land. Much success. I'll put links to everything in the show notes, your socials, the
Thank you.
Come Up May site, your site, all that kind of good stuff. So thank you for hanging out with me.
Awesome.
You're so awesome.
You're so awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I have to ask one question. I want to ask you a million. Where are you located?
Just
Because we're not in
outside
the
of
same.
Detroit, Michigan.
Okay. All right. Because when I come to Detroit, we gotta hang out.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah, for
That's all
sure.
I wanted to say.
All
So
right, done deal.
hopefully the film makes it up to Michigan. Like it's on the list of things. So places to come.
I expect a front row
Yeah.
seat.
Okay. Well, you don't want the
I'll
front
put
row
the
in a movie
jacket
theater.
on. I'll do the whole thing.
You got it. I think the front. You want like third or fourth row
Yeah, yeah,
back. Front row. Yeah. But
yeah.
we'll get the jacket is ready for you.
You're awesome. Thank you.
You are too. Thank you.